The rain tapped softly against the glowing windows of Maison de Lune, the most expensive restaurant in the entire city. Inside, chandeliers sparkled like golden waterfalls, and the smell of truffle butter and aged wine filled the air. It was the kind of place where business tycoons celebrated million-dollar deals, and celebrities came to be seen. Every table was covered with pristine white linen, silver cutlery that gleamed like swords, and crystal glasses filled with deep red wine. A string quartet played softly in the corner, their violins adding a haunting elegance to the atmosphere. And then, the heavy glass doors creaked open. In walked an elderly black woman. Her hair was grey, tucked neatly under a modest hat. Her clothes weren't flashy, just a plain, clean dress and a pair of shoes that had clearly seen better days. She held a small handbag close to her chest, and her eyes wandered with quiet curiosity at the opulence before her. For a moment the room froze. A hush swept across the restaurant. Heads turned, eyebrows raised. A group of wealthy diners near the center table exchanged mocking smirks. A waiter holding a tray almost dropped it, caught between confusion and discomfort. At the front desk, the hostess, a young woman dressed in black with her hair pulled back into a perfect bun, looked up, stunned. The elderly woman approached gently and said, "Good evening, dear. I'd like a table, please." The hostess blinked, as if she hadn't heard right. "A table?" she repeated slowly, her voice laced with disbelief. "Yes," the woman said softly. "A table for one." A short, cruel laugh broke out from the central table. A group of suited men and their jeweled wives were watching the scene unfold like it was a comedy show staged for their amusement. One man muttered loudly enough for the entire room to hear, "Looks like someone got lost on her way to the diner across the street." The others chuckled. Another woman covered her mouth dramatically and whispered, "Oh, bless her heart, she thinks this is affordable for her." The elderly woman heard them. Her hands trembled slightly, but she stood tall. The hostess forced a polite smile, though her eyes betrayed her judgment. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This establishment has reservations only." The woman's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "Well then, it's a good thing I have one," she replied calmly, pulling out a small slip of paper from her purse. The hostess's smile faltered. She took the paper, scanned it, and her face paled. It was legitimate, a reservation, confirmed under a name she didn't recognize. Still, hesitation filled the hostess's voice. I see. But, before she could continue, one of the laughing men stood up from his table, puffing out his chest. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a suit so sharp it probably cost more than most cars. His watch gleamed, his shoes polished to perfection. He was clearly a man who thrived on power and status. He walked over to the elderly woman and leaned down slightly, sneering. "Listen, lady," he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "This place isn't for people like you. Why don't you save yourself the embarrassment and head back where you came from?" The room chuckled with him. The sound was cruel, sharp, echoing against the expensive walls. The elderly woman's eyes glistened, but she didn't back down. She straightened her shoulders and spoke clearly. "I believe I have as much right to be here as anyone else. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to take my seat." The man laughed louder, waving her off like she was a beggar. "You heard her, didn't you?" he said, turning back to the room. "She believes she has a right to be here." The restaurant erupted with laughter. Even some waiters exchanged awkward grins, unsure how to react. But just then, the restaurant manager appeared. He was a tall, stern man in a tailored suit, his hair slicked back, his expression carved in stone. He approached quickly, sensing the commotion. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked sharply. The hostess immediately piped up. "This woman says she has a reservation." "But I—" The manager cut her off with a raised hand. He took the slip of paper, looked at it, and froze. His eyes widened, his throat tightened. He looked up at the elderly woman with a mixture of disbelief and sudden fear. The arrogant man beside her scoffed. "Go on, manager. Tell her she doesn't belong here." The manager's face turned pale. He swallowed hard. I'll personally escort you to your table, ma'am," he said quickly, his voice suddenly respectful, almost trembling. The room went silent. The arrogant man blinked in confusion. "What? Are you serious?" The manager ignored him, bowing slightly to the elderly woman. "This way, please. Your table has been prepared." The elderly woman nodded softly, a faint smile playing at her lips as the entire restaurant watched in stunned silence. She walked past the man who had mocked her, her chin high, her grace undeniable. And that's when the whispers began. Who is she? Why is the manager acting like that? She must be someone important. The arrogant man clenched his jaw, suddenly uneasy. And just as the woman reached her table, the manager leaned closer and whispered something. Something that made the arrogant man's face drain of color. Something that made the entire room realize they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Before I tell you exactly who she was, if you're hooked already, smash that like button right now, and subscribe if you believe respect should be given to all people equally. Now, let's continue. The restaurant buzzed with whispers as the manager guided the elderly woman to the best seat in the house. A table near the window overlooking the glowing city lights. The arrogant man who had mocked her clenched his fists. He was used to being the most powerful presence in the room. But now he felt something strange, an uncomfortable sense that the ground beneath him was shifting. He stormed back to his table, muttering to his friends. This is ridiculous. Who even is she? The others shrugged nervously. Even the wives who had laughed before now shifted uneasily in their seats. Something about the manager's fear. It was real. Meanwhile, the elderly woman sat gracefully. She unfolded her napkin with steady hands, her eyes scanning the room. Not with arrogance, but with quiet dignity. The waiter assigned to her hesitated, then approached nervously. "Good evening, ma'am. Would you like to see the wine list?" She smiled faintly. "That won't be necessary. I'll have the house special." Her calmness unsettled everyone. Who was this woman who could walk into the most exclusive restaurant in the city, be mocked, dismissed, and yet still command such respect from the staff once they realized her identity? Back at the arrogant man's table, his friends leaned in. "Maybe she's rich," one whispered. "Rich? Look at her shoes, they're worn out," another said. "No, it's something else," muttered a third. The manager looked scared. The man slammed his fist on the table, drawing eyes from nearby diners. "I don't care who she is. Nobody makes a fool out of me." He stood, straightened his jacket, and marched back toward her. He stopped at her table, leaned down, and sneered. "So, mystery lady. Everyone's whispering. Who are you really? Because from where I stand, you're just an old woman who doesn't belong here." The woman looked up slowly, her eyes calm but piercing. "My dear," she said softly, "belonging has never been about appearance. It's about truth. And the truth has a way of revealing itself, whether you're ready for it or not." The man scoffed. "Spare me the riddles. What truth?" Before she could respond, the manager appeared again, this time with beads of sweat on his forehead. He bent low and whispered, "Ma'am, if I may, should I inform them?" The woman nodded gently. The manager cleared his throat, turned toward the restaurant, and announced in a trembling voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to formally introduce tonight's guest, Dr. Evelyn Carter." The room fell silent. Gasps echoed. Several diners froze mid-bite. The arrogant man blinked, lost. "Doctor who?" The manager continued, his voice stronger now. "Dr. Carter, the woman you see before you, is one of the city's most celebrated philanthropists, a renowned scientist, and," he paused, letting the weight of his words hang heavy, "the majority shareholder of the very company that owns this restaurant." The room erupted in stunned murmurs. The arrogant man's face turned ghostly pale. He stepped back, stumbling slightly. His friends stared at him, horrified. The elderly woman, Dr. Carter, folded her hands neatly on the table, her expression serene. She looked up at the man who had mocked her and said, "You laughed at me because you thought I was beneath you. But tonight, you've shown everyone the truth, that arrogance blinds, and cruelty reveals weakness." Her words struck like thunder in the quiet room. If you believe respect should never be judged by appearance, hit that like button right now. And let me know in the comments, have you ever been underestimated like this woman? Share your story. The arrogant man swallowed hard. I didn't know," he stammered. Dr. Carter's eyes softened, but her voice remained firm. "That's the point, young man. You didn't care to know. You judged me before you even heard my name." The manager interjected nervously. "Dr. Carter, please forgive us for the misunderstanding." She smiled faintly. "I don't hold grudges. But I do remember lessons, and tonight, so will everyone here." As the evening went on, the entire restaurant's atmosphere shifted. People who had mocked her earlier now looked at her with awe and shame. Waiters rushed to serve her with the utmost respect. Diners whispered her name like it was legend. But Dr. Carter remained humble, eating quietly, savoring her meal. The arrogant man sat at his table, humiliated. His friends no longer laughed. Their eyes stayed low, their conversations hushed. Finally, as Dr. Carter stood to leave, the room rose with her. Out of respect, not obligation. She walked past the arrogant man, paused, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "My child, she said softly. Power, money, and status mean nothing if you lack kindness. Remember this night. Then she walked out, her presence lingering long after she was gone. If this story moved you, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and comment below with your country and city. We want to see how far our stories reach. And one more thing, if you love your mother, hit subscribe. If you love your father, hit like. Let's spread respect together.